Hello, it's Alexa, and you are listening and watching the Wishbeads podcast. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of connecting with Jamie Cole, who is a brand strategist, but she's also a fitness and wellness enthusiast who I had the pleasure of connecting with through a mutual friend. They said, "My goodness, you two will hit it off." And hit it off we did. In fact, Jamie is the co-founder of a women's retreat called Breathe. And you're going to learn a little bit more about it in the course of our conversation. But I think it also attests to this fact of one thing that I talk about, the power of wishing. And that is the power of saying it out loud. You know, there's a lot of mythology around keeping wishes to yourself. But the problem is when you keep your wish to yourself, nobody knows what you're wishing for, which means it's very difficult for them to help you. So for years and years, I've been talking about having a wish camp. You know, the idea of getting out in nature, getting people together to wish together, to great conversations. And a mutual friend knew that I was talking about this and said, "My goodness, I have to introduce you to Jamie Cole. You're going to hear why in a minute." So if you're someone who, let's say your default is to not share your birthday wish when you blow out your candles, or maybe you're even a little hesitant to write that wish in your Wishbeads jewelry, maybe today's conversation is your invitation to be just a little bit braver and understand that there is power in connection, in communication, and just having the confidence in yourself to say your wish out loud. So without further ado, this is Jamie Cole. I often say I should record the first conversation that I have with people because, you know, Jamie, you are certainly somebody who we had sparks flying from the minute, you know, we jumped on a Zoom and met one another and heard one another's stories. So welcome to the Wishbeads podcast, where my audience can get to know you, your work, and a little bit more about how we're collaborating together in the very near future.
Fabulous. Thank you for having me.
I have to say I'm indebted to our mutual friend for connecting us, knowing that we were like-minded sisters on the path of wellness and empowerment. And just to dive right in, can you give us just a little bit of backstory about just your work in the world, and then a little bit about what we'll talk about what we're doing together.
Sure. So I began my profession in marketing communications. I had kind of a circuitous adventure, and I ended up working at a sports management company, IMG. And then I ended up at a child welfare agency as the director of marketing. So I had some marketing expertise, sprinkle on top of that special events on a pretty grand scale. And then you go into child welfare and thinking about how to teach children to fish rather than to give them a fish and help them when they are born into tough circumstances. And then from there, my husband and I were presented with an opportunity to buy a summer camp in New Hampshire. And at that moment, I went back to one of my mantras, which is sometimes in life you have to close your eyes and jump. And because it matters so much what your legacy is more than anything else, how you want to be remembered. And I felt like the opportunity to create meaningful experiences for children was it was an opportunity we couldn't pass up, even though we were both having a great time in our respective careers. So we dove in both feet, bought this summer camp that he had gone to as a child, and his dad had gone, and his uncle. And so we bought the camp, and we went and we grew it. And I think, you know, all of our prior career paths really helped to position us to do well there. But as a side note, I had been a fitness instructor since I was 15, and I was teaching a cycle class, and I would often do visualization rides. And I was talking about riding through Freedom, New Hampshire, where our camp was. And this woman said to me, "Enough, you need to do something to bring your friends to this camp. We keep hearing about it, and it's such a tease." And it sparked the idea that I wanted to create an experience for dynamic women to gather together to experience camp. And another part of that motivation was I'm always fascinated by women's journeys. I think that our generation was raised to be ambitious, but also take incredible care of ourselves and have an incredibly successful marriage and be the best mom and keep a beautiful home. And when I came to this point in my life, it was like, really, how are we supposed to do all of these things? It feels impossible.
Right?
Yes. And so selfishly creating this women's retreat allowed me the opportunity to bring dynamic women together to share our stories with one another, to see how are you doing it? How are you doing it? And how can we support one another in this journey that we're all on to help us feel like we're thriving in our lives and living with joy. And so it was really an extraordinary spark that my friend created. And from there, I came up with this retreat idea of Breathe, the spirit of camp, the company of women.
Okay. So many things that I absolutely love and resonate with that, Jamie, which was why our friend put us together. And we hadn't met before, and I don't think you were aware of Wishbeads, but for some time now, I had been talking about Wish Camp. And just as you had said, and certainly what I relate to is that feeling of wearing so many or embodying so many roles, things that we were taught as young people that we can do it all and have it all, and the world is our oyster. And so we took it on because like that sounds fantastic. We want it all. And yet in that, if you are someone who really thrives, and that means I think for all humans on creativity and innovation, it actually requires downtime. It requires a reset. It requires connection with nature and a walking away from those ascribed roles and responsibilities to nourish ourselves, to breathe. And so I love how you married both that intention combined with a spirit of camp, because camp is when, I mean, I don't know, I went to a few camps when I was a kid. I was fortunate enough to go to a couple of years of summer camp, and it felt completely magical that you just had this new place where you could play and you were still taken care of. You know, you knew where to sleep and what to eat, but you didn't have any of the trappings of anything that felt familiar. And that's fun. And when the opportunity presented itself, when you were talking about Breathe and the possibility of coming in as a bringing Wishbeads as a crafting experience, a visioning experience, combined with our dear friend Christine Carlson, who I had no idea was already involved. For those of you who don't know Christine, she is a remarkable author and teacher, retreat leader. But her husband was Richard Carlson, who wrote Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And Christine has been carrying on that message beautifully in her work since his passing at such a young age. And I had no idea she was involved. So here we are. And it is happening this year, September 7th through the 10th. And of course, in the show notes, I'll put the links because we want everybody to be there. So get your spot. But Jamie, I want to go back. You had mentioned something that you had been teaching exercise, a passion of yours, since you were 15 years old. What were you like as a child? I want to see what things really sparked your heart that then, maybe you carried in through your work.
I think I had an abundance of energy. And I am 4.5 years younger than my older sister, who's very shy. And I am the antithesis, obviously, of that. And so my sister wanted to go to an aerobics class and she wouldn't go alone. So here I was 12 years old and she dragged me with her to Fitness World. And I loved it. And, I've been singing my whole life. So I love music and I love the whole, being in aerobics class was just a blast. And so it excited me. So I had a lot of energy always in my life. And I've always enjoyed connecting with people authentically, without pretense, without the veil is one of my favorite people Ram Dass refers to often and when he speaks. But I like connecting with people in a raw way. And I find that exercise creates that perfect environment for that, because you don't know where people come from and what they do necessarily, but you connect with their energy
Yeah.
and with music. And it feels meaningful to me. And so throughout my whole life, in every city I've ever lived, I've found a place where I've taught fitness, and it has created some of the most meaningful relationships in my life. Um, so yeah, I think as a child, I would say I was very energetic and have always loved connecting with people.
Yeah, beautiful. And then how has because I think, and we had talked about this right before the podcast began, we began recording, is I think people have this perspective that there's the things that you love to do, and then there's your career, and or that they have to be the same thing. Like if you're doing the work that you're meant to do on this planet, which can also come with some pressure, to identify what that is and make it happen. How has that dance between your passion, love for fitness, and even teaching fitness to the work that you do as a brand strategist? How have those two been interconnected in some way?
It's really interesting, Alexa, as I look back on my life and how things have kind of presented. Um, and there have been moments where I've just said, I need a job. I need to make money and, make sure that I can provide for myself and my family. And so that takes me in certain directions to accept certain jobs. But as I've gotten older and I've gotten a little bit more, I don't know, I guess calm maybe, and just centered, and I'm more trusting in the universe. And I give myself a little bit of breath, and I look at different opportunities, and I look at not only what is going to make sense financially, but really what touches my soul, because
Mm,
that's when I'm really able to thrive. And in one of my most recent engagements, I created a wellness program for a grocery retailer from nothing. It was a blank slate, and they just wanted to figure out a way how to leverage this important value, which is that food is medicine. And
mm,
how could they communicate that message in a way that would build relationships between the people in the store and their customers? And so we created this program called Club FX. Instead of RX, it's F is a medicine. And it really tapped into my passion for health and wellness. It tapped into my marketing and brand strategy expertise. And I worked with amazing people who were brilliant, brilliant. And it was so much fun to learn from them, a registered dietitian, a holistic physician. And boy, it was like an explosion, right? Of joy. And we grew the program. We have over 60,000 members in just 2.5 years.
wow.
I know. And I think it's because we approached it with such passion and love and fervor, and voila, right? And you got the right people together, and it reinforced this notion that you can have a marrying of your passion and your expertise. And when you can find that perfect blend or somehow combine those things, I just think it becomes even more fruitful. So
Yeah.
it's trusting. I think there's a bit of trust though that comes
Yeah.
along with that.
And I've found, I'm 51 now, and I actually find that the older I get, the more that I trust, or the more that I have my life experience to look back and see, wow, when I really took this leap of faith, when I really just made the phone call or asked for the introduction or asked the right question or positioned something in a way that really excited me the most. In hindsight, I think I was far more protective of those decisions in my early careers, and I think that that's what I've seen in the women or the people that I surround myself with, is that the older we get, the more they're like, well, why not? It feels like you have less to lose. I don't know. You're not as reliant on or concerned about other people's opinions. And in fact, I think you can bring that level of maturity and humility, and it pays off.
And I think at this age too, we realize that, the clock's ticking,
Yep.
and I don't want to be on my deathbed with with more regret than I need to have, right?
Yeah,
We regret more the things we don't do than the things we do.
absolutely.
And I have to remember that because I am definitely risk adverse.
Mm,
I'm naturally a fearful person, and I have to fight that constantly. And as you said beautifully, as I look back, I'm like, you know what? I took that risk, and look at how it worked for me. So
yeah.
I'm building off of that courage. At least I'm trying
Mm.
to.
So, two things that come to mind. Number one, you just mentioned I'm a fearful person, which actually I would never think about you. Someone from the outside seeing the things that you do and the passions that you have and how active you are and what you're building wouldn't think that that was the action of someone who claims himself as fearful. That's cool. Let me ask you, how do you manage those feelings of fear? Because the trick is to feel the fear and take action anyway. How do you manage your own fears when they come up? Fear is a natural emotion. What's your practice as it relates to that?
I have an incredible support group. I have over the years, I think the greatest asset I have in my life are my friendships.
Mm,
Really brilliant women, all smarter than me. It reminds me of the new Julia Louis-Dreyfus podcast called Wiser Than Me. I try to surround myself with really wise people, and I look to them for feedback. We do with one another.
mm,
It's almost like a think tank that we've built, right?
beautiful.
It really helps to bounce things out to make sure that, do you guys, what do you think about this? Is this a good risk to take? Not, should I do it? And sometimes, though, this is where the universe comes in. Sometimes I don't have a choice. Like the calling is so strong. Like breathe just happened. Like I don't even know why or how, but it just happened. And I think sometimes, that there's a force there too that's a little bit inexplainable.
Yeah, beautiful. My friend Ellen calls it her board, like as if you have this board of directors of people that are around you. And, for anyone listening who's saying, geez, I don't have that. I would say, look for one person who you can feel that there is an opening, just a little crack in the door that you could ask their opinion about something. I found the people that wait for someone to ask them, you could be waiting forever. But if you find that, that spark or that connection, or you feel comfortable with somebody just to begin, hey, can I ask your opinion about something? You may find that that's how you begin those deeper, more honest relationships. Because I find that the older that I get, I really don't have time or interest for deeply superficial relationships. There's only so much time that I want to devote to that. So the things that are meaningful to me, I want to invest my time. And actually, one of the things that I love about the Breathe Retreat is if you're someone who's like, geez, I don't have like this amazing brain trust of friends around me, you have to then go to places where you are going to meet and connect with other people who value that, who value taking time out of their lives for going deeper, for having inquisitive conversations. And so I think that it's it's so amazing to when you finally say yes and invest in yourself and your happiness,
I
whatever that looks like to you. And many things, in your community are even free, things that you can do that are free. And so I think it's time, it's that paradigm shift where if you wait, you could end up waiting forever. I wish more people would talk to me. Well, be the person that gets to talk to somebody else. Do the thing that you want someone to do to you. Just be that person, because the only person you can really change is you. I
I have
find that the good news.
it's a power that you have, and you have to recognize it. I agree. But it's also being vulnerable and
Mm,
allowing yourself to be vulnerable.
yes.
And I think once you realize that we are all vulnerable, we are all imperfect, we all recognize our imperfections. That's important. What I would say too about what Breathe offers is that natural setting. I'll tell you, I have had some of my greatest connections with people on hikes.
Yeah.
Outside, you have the beautiful, scenery and the smell, and you're just walking and talking, and it's so natural. And I have a group of women that I walk with every Friday morning at 6:30 a.m. And we've been doing it for, I think, 20 years. And
Wow.
even in snowstorms, we will put on every layer we have, or even if it's raining, we really try not to miss.
That's
And
incredible.
there's something about walking and talking that you just, it's a different conversation than if you're at a party. I don't know why.
Definitely.
It just is. And I'm with
Yeah.
you. I want to put my energy towards things that fill me and make me feel joy and
Mm.
authentic conversations, real interactions. That's so much of my nourishment that I need.
Yes, absolutely. Now, a few times you mentioned the universe, and I think that we can use that word universe to imply a spiritual level of support that kind of doesn't necessarily, it's not religious per se, but it can be named whatever feels most of a spiritual connection to you.
Mhm.
How does that show up for you? How do you nurture that connection to the universe to guide you or to ground you or um, help you in any way?
Um, I think again, as I've gotten older, I've gotten more aware of forces bigger than me. And I agree. I don't look at it as a religious thing. It's much more to me spiritual. Um, and I look for signs or, listening again. I mentioned Ram Dass. That was the people that I worked with in my last project introduced me to him. And even just the wisdom that he shares have kind of
Mhm.
expanded my idea around, um, you know, things that are greater than myself. So yeah, and it goes back to me being a fearful person, right? I think it's just the breathing, it's the listening, it's tapping in. And it might not be universe. Maybe that's kind of an escape for me to say it's more even just tapping into really what I was born with, right? Like there was some reason that I'm here on this earth and I'm trying to figure it out so that I,
Yeah.
leave a bit of an imprint.
Yeah. The woman that I study with for my meditation teacher for over 20 years, she's the one to say that, everybody actually is enlightened. We have forgotten our own connection to the power of presence, that energy. The universe is us, it is inside of us. And so it's the question then for me always becomes, how am I standing in the way, my own way, to really tap into the power of presence?
Mhm.
And it's available to us all the time. And yet our minds or our fears or our fretting or our doing or our distractions, they're keeping us out and thinking that it's something outside of us, some kind of, and yet if we can find the confidence to allow ourselves to drop the doing or dissolve the roles that we play or the costumes we wear, to really just be in the present. It's like a well of untapped energy and guidance and insight and all those things. And uh, for me, I think I've shared this before, is it's the shower, ironically, with all that water moving through my energy body and my physical body, of course, but it also has a cleansing effect on your energy body. That's actually when I feel a lot clearer with my connection. Like that's it for me. And probably it's the same if I'm swimming in the ocean or in nature. It's this like energetic quieting of all the noise in my mind and the noise in the environment, so I can feel the power of that connection even deeper.
See, for me, it's exercise. I start
Yeah.
every day just challenging myself physically. And that's when
Wow.
I really kind of let go of all the and just, yeah, connect again with
Yeah.
myself.
And I think for anybody listening, the idea is to really acknowledge or witness and identify what are the places where you're in that flow state. Like,
Mhm.
where are you in that place or the activities that you do? And for some people, it's cooking. Like, you know, that's not really my place where I feel happy. But I have friends who, let's say they're working all day and the way that they relax is to cook dinner. Well, I'll tell you, if I've had a busy day at work, last thing I want to do is cook dinner.
Me too. We'll bring
but
in
but
Alexa.
let's say, for example, you may like it or not like it, but at the end of the day, you have to cook dinner. What are the things that then put you in a flow state? For me, it's music. So
Mhm.
if I want to change the energy, I'll put on some music.
Mhm.
I was speaking to a friend of mine yesterday. He's a sculptor and he works on commission. He's working on a big piece. And he said to me, I don't know what it is with this project. It just doesn't, it's like I've had more problems with this project that, it just keeps on having issues and it's stopping me from finishing it. Like it's unbelievable. And I said, well, maybe you just need to change the energy around it, like put some smudge around it or whatever, to change the energy dynamic. And whether or not it needs to be smudged, what needs to happen is to change the narrative around it, to change the thinking around it. Anyway, I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent here, but we have these tools that are available, but are also unique to us, which puts us in our place of health and wellness and personal power and freedom and fun. And it sounds as though exercise and eating well, your passion for nutrition is a non-negotiable for you. It sounds, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Yeah. My, something else that I live by is I have to feel my best to be my best.
mm,
And, so what is it going to take for me to feel my best? Making sure I get 7 hours of sleep, making sure I drink enough water, making sure that I'm putting whole foods in my body, just all of that. But I will, there's two things that you just touched on that I would love to go back to. And one is the narrative, the chatter. We have more conversations with ourselves than we do with any other human. And I think that's another way to overcome, for me, fear, is having conversations with myself.
yes.
And it's powerful and it's important. But also then going back to the importance of connecting with really beautiful people that fill you up, they also help to contribute to the narrative. So
Mm,
it all works together, right?
right.
How we treat ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, and how we surround ourselves with, whether it's
Yeah.
nature, beauty, and beautiful people.
Yeah. And I think that we can't take for granted those shifts, those subtle shifts. Sometimes we think that we have to change, which means that everything has to change and we blow up our lives and make these drastic changes. And yet, when you make the subtle changes, the little changes, when you start to bring gentle awareness to, let's say, your patterns of eating, let's say the types of shows that you watch, or maybe even the power of putting fresh cut flowers in your home or a plant that you take care of. They seem like little tiny things that what difference do those little things make? But it's incredible that when you add those up, you start to, build a world in which you actually feel better because
Mhm.
you're just bringing this gentle awareness. So, while I may not have a gym membership, I now actually truly value and prioritize taking a brisk walk in my neighborhood because I found that that's something that actually I love doing.
Mhm.
And if I'm, forcing myself to go to a gym, it just doesn't bring joy. Or it can't just be any spin class, so you have to find the things and gently and with curiosity about things that really genuinely light you up, that
Mhm.
really feel supportive. And then you do enough of those, you string enough of those together, and suddenly you're in a different space where you feel good, which means that your mind is operating in a different way, perhaps with more possibility, more optimism, more creativity, more action, more focus. And I think that it's the power of the slower, more deliberate approach, which I always bristle when I hear people who are promoting a program or whatever that's like 30 days, and uh, I just think it's that we have to slow our roll, so to speak, and live a little bit more gracefully, and then we can really embody the results of those choices.
So the first Brie that I ever held in 2010 was moderated by a woman named Regina Brett, and she is an author. And one of her first books was called God Never Blinks. I'm sorry. Yes, God Never Blinks. And one in each chapter had a really poignant life lesson. And even just read the book by reading the chapter titles. And one of the chapters was just take one small step in the right direction. And I loved that chapter because she talked about how, if I wanted to get an MBA, oh, it feels like, how am I ever going to do that? Just sign up for one course.
Yep.
And we talk a lot about that in the Club FX program that I was referring to earlier in terms of nutrition. Just add one fresh vegetable a day, for people who aren't used to eating a certain way. Just add. And it's amazing how, to your point, Alexa, those baby steps really are powerful, even just the psychology of them, because you can say to yourself, wow, I took a brisk walk. That really good for me. Good for me. And it just starts building.
Yeah, it does. And actually that's the safest way to make change in your body and lasting change, because it happens so subtly. And then suddenly you're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. And then on sometimes I was thinking, I just shared with you earlier that this past weekend I participated in a morning event called Daybreaker. And part of that event was an hour of yoga and 2.5 hour dance party. And at the beginning of September, I fractured my tibia, which was a very intense 2-month recovery in a boot, no exercise, followed by 2 months of rehabilitation. And I had not yet, you probably know that that's kind of a big deal. And it was from a spinning accident, by the way. Didn't think one could do so much damage on a spin bike.
Oh my gosh.
But you can.
Oh.
Yeah, it was terrible. I won't go into it because I don't want to make anybody, nauseous, but it was a super bummer, freak accident. And I had never before had sustained an injury like that, very disruptive to my life. And I was told, that, well, I don't know, maybe your ankle's never going to be the same. And I was like, oh no, because I have a lot of life left and I don't want to have this ongoing injury where I am limiting myself in any way. So I literally did all the things that they said that you needed to do, daily stretching and exercises. And so cut to this past Sunday, amazing DJ with very inspirational language and kind of bringing you through this experience for, 2.5 hours, which by the way is incredibly aerobic. And about an hour and a half in of the dance party portion, something happens in the music and everybody is jumping, like we're, and in that moment, I was like, number one, like, this is so much fun. Number two, I am so grateful that my body can do this now. Like that here I am, a handful of less than a year later, and my ankle is strong and I am more mindful. I'm more appreciative.
Yes.
And I'm feeling the energy of my own physical body. And I'm not saying that, people who weren't necessarily jumping, they weren't doing that. Everybody's on their own path, but it really, like, sometimes you need a setback to really land you in a place of almost like a full body appreciation. Because I never thought about my ankles before, or my feet, or my legs, for myself. And I have a very different awareness about it.
And appreciation.
Yeah, big time, and mindfulness. And I think that right now we're in such an intense time. I guess it always is an intense time. It's intense to be a human being on the planet, or not even a human being. But I also feel that this is an incredibly potent time for self-discovery.
I think at our age too.
Yeah.
I think as we are in our 50s and you start recognizing your own mortality is the point when you really start to live.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
you live unapologetically.
Yes.
At least that's my hope for people. You know, if I can inspire, people to really just figure out who they are authentically and double down on that, I think it would be a great gift.
Absolutely, without question. And from that point of view, I also want to touch a little bit on your work that you do with young people. And I know that you did that with Camp Robin Hood, But I also know that you just launched an empowerment program, or you're a part of an empowerment program for teens. So how does that work that you do professionally? It seems as though one of the priorities is giving back to young people. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I created this program because I recognized that we have this of epic proportion um, pandemic going on with children and teens and young adults, where they are sad and not feeling wonderful in their own skin. And we can call it depression and an anxiety, which I think is a really, commonly used diagnosis. But I really believe that we can be addressing this in a non-pharmacological way by going back to basics.
Yeah.
And so empowerment is a 3-part program, and it's geared towards teenagers, 13 to 16. And we address electronic media health, because I think that we have to recognize that there is a direct correlation between mental health challenges and the uptick use of electronics and social media. So that's part 1 of the program, social media health, and learning how to communicate without your electronics, because I think that's been lost.
Right.
And as we talk here about the need for enriching, nurturing relationships, it's impossible to happen behind a phone. And so we have to teach our young people how to have those deep connections with people that can be vulnerable and safe. So part 2 of the program is nutrition. I referenced earlier my own commitment to making sure that I feel my best, because I want to be my best. And when you have diets of highly processed foods, research has shown time and again that there is a direct correlation between depression and anxiety and diets that are highly processed. So if we can help kids understand that they don't have to be hungry to be healthy, they don't have to sacrifice taste for health, and just educate them on what they can be swapping out. You can eat potato chips, just pick a brand like a Boulder chip that just has avocado oil, potatoes, and sea salt.
Right.
Go
Right.
for it.
Right.
But just the value of nutrient dense foods. And then the third piece is fitness, because I think the endorphins that you get from exercise make you feel invincible.
Yeah.
And so all of those things combined, my hope is that teens will feel empowered, which is why we came up with a name for that program. We want them to know they hold the power to feel their best. They hold the power. We're going to give them all the tools in order to do that.
It's so important. It's really truly life skills. And even I have 2 teenage sons, and I appreciate all the things that they're learning in school, but I would also appreciate them layering in those very basic life skills, because even from the point of view of digital media use and comfort level of connecting with people in real life, I have found that among some teens, they can't look you in the eye. They can't have a conversation with a stranger as they're ordering food, or feel confident enough to engage with, just people in their surroundings, because our world has become addicted to connecting our faces to screens. And I just yesterday, a friend of mine was attending an Apple reveal of some of their latest technology. Oh, Jamie. Of course, Apple is getting in the goggle game of augmented reality and putting your screens on your faces. And I was like,
more barriers.
More barriers. I mean, besides the fact that you look like, I won't even say the name, but the fact that we are thinking that is more technology that we need to dive into as human beings, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I understand that we live in a world in which technology is not going away, and nor am I saying that we need to, but we have to not negate what it means to be, for our beings, just common sense, even in your homes with little goggles on, even though there's some filter where you're going to be able to see something. Oh my goodness.
It scares me.
But I will say this, the video that she did during the reveal, when the when the video came on to show the product, well, specifically the price tag and the product, the audience, without a cue, began laughing. And I thought, wow, that's different for an Apple reveal, laughing.
Wow.
So
Okay.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that gives me some hope, Alexa.
It gives me a teeny bit of hope. You're not
Yeah.
going to see me with putting my computer on my face with goggles. I just
I'll
think,
tell you, when we ran our summer camp, we had 400 children and 100 and plus staff that were also young, college age kids. And we were a no electronics camp.
right.
It was interesting to see kids having to detach and engage. And I think coming to camp became a real important part of their existence, because I think we have a natural draw, if you will allow yourself to unplugging truly for significant periods of time and connecting with people.
Yeah.
It's like it's part of our being.
Yep. I agree with you. I interviewed Tiffany Shalane on this podcast, and she wrote a book called 24/6. And she talks about a tech sabbatical that she does every week with her family. So they do not use electronics 1 day a week. And what that does for your mind and your brain and the activities, how you spend your time.
Mhm.
And it's funny because even in my own family, after I interviewed her and I read her book, we sort of spent maybe a month doing it. I got so much resistance. My mother even said, because we don't even have a landline in our phone, how will I reach you? And I was like, I would imagine it's going to be fine. Or, I mean, it was very interesting because it is so a part of our life that we don't even remember what it's like to really, tune out.
Yes.
And I think it is absolutely critical. At Breathe, are we tech free?
We are tech free. Yeah.
Amazing. Tech free.
Yep. And
Freedom.
what we'll do is we can give people certain emergency numbers to give their families.
Sure.
And you can have your phone in your cabin, obviously. But the hope is that people will not have them on their person during the days.
Yeah.
Well, and the goal will be that everybody will be so engaged and so busy they won't even think about it.
No, it's fantastic. And I think it's so necessary. Well, Jamie, I am just absolutely delighted and honored and thrilled to have you in my life. I'm so grateful and so looking forward to Breathe. And I just can't wait to just experience that with you. And also to see, what else is in store in the sisterhood.
Yes, we do become Breathe sisters. So I'm honored that you're coming, Alexa. And again, so grateful for our friend that introduced us, because what are the chances? And now you get to do Wish Camp, right?
I'm doing my version of Wish Camp. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. Jamie, how can everybody find out more about you? What's the best way that people can connect and follow the work that you do?
Well, I would say breatheretreat.net. Is a great place to go to find me. I would think that the majority of people would connect more through that. Empowerment.health is the new program that I launched. So that's another way if you're curious to see that program. I'm hoping at some point to scale it nationally, but
Incredible.
right now I'm just doing it in Ohio. So yeah, good stuff. It
Wonderful.
feels good. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Jamie. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Yeah. Pleasure talking with you.
Thank you for listening and watching. And if you can do me a solid, please leave a review about the podcast or share it with your favorite people, because these messages, these conversations are here to inspire you to dream a little bit bigger, to wish a little bit brighter, and to stay confident to go after your biggest wishes, dreams, and goals. So I encourage you to check out Breathe Retreat if you'd like to treat yourself to the company of women in the spirit of camp. It's going to be so much fun. I honestly am counting the days, and I would love to be there with you. There are links to all of the things that we mentioned in the podcast in the show notes. So go ahead, spread the word. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time. Oh, yes. And if you have a wish story to share. We have a very special offer. If you're interested in making you're filming your testimonial or your wish story, I will send you free wish beads. So you can learn more about that in the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can always message us and find out more details. We'd love to hear your wish story. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.